So we were talking about this prospecting stuff, right? Those of you who were here earlier this morning, and I just want to point out a couple of things. And I have to tell you that I think that no matter where an individual is in their life, it is a direct result based on their personal disciplines. And in my career, I've realized that there's only a handful of things that you need to be disciplined in relationship to this business. But I just want to remind each of you that there is nothing whatsoever in this business that you can't learn. So if that's the case, I also believe that discipline is a learned skill. And I had a conversation sitting in that chair last night at 8 p.m. last night, just with everything that's been going on, right? And we're going to send out some emails and listen to the daily message, please, today. We talk about some of the changes. If you didn't watch the video yesterday with John and me, and there's lots of just movement in the company, and it's happening. I mean, there's when the market's growing, we grow. When the market's shrinking, we shrink. It's the worst part of our job in the sense of running a company, but that doesn't mean individually it needs to be the case for any of you. And the challenge is that I have to operate from a collective level. In your level, you operate individually unless you had, massive amounts of administration and people around you, then you still would do. But when it comes to your personal activities and what you do, just remember that you are in complete control. And the control comes down to these disciplines. And so they're just the two things that I've seen is that if people will prospect and if they will, I'm just going to put here participate, but specifically if they will I'm going to put here practice. If you will do those two things, you will win the game with this business. But don't underestimate. And now this is one of the things I don't see a ton of seasoned agents in here today. But the one thing I've observed, and the conversation was again sitting in that chair last night. I was sitting there on the phone with this gal, and the exact words came out of her mouth, and I've heard it over and over again. And it was this: I am so tired. I mean, just tired, exhausted. And I just really don't want to sell real estate anymore. Now I want to point this out. This is one of the top 25 agents in our company. And I said, well, that's interesting. Like Pedro, as a loan officer, you've been doing this how long now, Pedro? 22 years. 22 years. You tired? No. All right. Well, good. I like that. You know what? That's interesting, because here's the thing. I'm watching a lot of experienced agents, and you may feel this, but I'm watching a lot of people who think that they're tired. I say think that they're tired. And part of that weariness is that we've been on this 13-year growth model for this business to where they haven't had to do the things that they need to do to get this business the way they want it to be. So when I look at someone like a Pedro, or I look at Dylan, and you see these guys are like you guys, you're in here in the morning, you're participating, and I hope that you're prospecting. Well, good things will happen. Well, there's a lot of agents, right? I mean, you've heard me talk about this before, is they're either waiting for business. And by the way, the conversation went, but I've been so used to my sphere of influence calling me. Well, guess what? The market shifted, and guess who's not calling anymore? Even if they have 200 or 300 or 400 people in their sphere, there's 3 point something, million people across this Wasatch Front. And you have 300 or 400 people, maybe you have 500 people in your sphere of influence, your database. That still may not be enough. And so the challenge is that these agents in general who have been waiting for business, or they've been buying it. And we say, again, sometimes I say this and people don't know what I mean. I mean, they go out and they buy leads. They buy internet leads. They buy access to the possibility of something happening. But in the end, they still have to do the one thing, which I said in my video yesterday, you still have to prospect those people, right? Even if you get an internet lead, you still, in the only way, maybe once in a blue moon from a drip campaign of emails, they call you and go, oh, I'm ready. But Nick, you've been doing this a long time. How often is that happening? Like you said,
4 or 5 times in 20 years.
Yes, exactly. So you can do some deals by drip campaigns. It doesn't mean you don't do the drip campaign, but you do the drip campaign along with what? Prospecting, making a call. All right. So the thing that I just want to point out when we say buy leads, I've said this in stages where there's been 5,000 people in the room. I've done it when I've had a few people in the room. But I say this, there's nothing wrong with the technology of leads and buying leads. The problem is that we think that just because we buy the leads, that we're going to get the business. It's the same principle. You have to prospect. Now, you're hoping that maybe there's a little bit of refinement to that lead, and there's maybe a little more of a potential because you know that maybe they were looking at a home online, maybe. But I just would point out to you, I've always had this belief, it's always been my mantra. There is always an opportunity and everybody is a lead. Because the thing is even if you own one home, doesn't everybody want to own a second home? And if you have two homes, wouldn't you like another one? And the thing is that in my world, I've just realized that everybody I talk to is a potential lead if I ask enough questions, if I get connected to the people, because I repeat and affirm and I do some other key things, which we'll continue to work on from a skills standpoint. So just remember that you can either wait for it to happen, you can either go buy it, or what I always say is you can go out and you can get the business, right? You make the calls, you talk to the people, you knock the doors, you do the things. I know that's not a new concept, but what I keep hearing is that people are tired. And part of it is because the business has been so much easier. And what we're starting to see is, right, this medium's growing and getting bigger because that's what happens. The market shifts. People go, whoa, I better do a couple of things up here. I better make sure that my mind is right. I better make sure that my skills are right. And I better make sure that I'm disciplined, meaning I got to be able to, I got to go do the actual work now. And that's where people are like, well, that's not what I thought I had to do. Well, you have to do that now. And that's things for me. This is normal. That's what you do. You go to work every day. You run an actual business. What I have found, I mean, and maybe you've gotten in the habit of this, but I've watched people who are living their life and they just happen to throw a little bit of real estate into their day, hoping they sell a little bit. And the thing that's interesting is that people have been able to get away with that for at least 2 years. Kind of just plugging some real estate in as they live this high life. I mean, look at you. I mean, not Instagram, and you look and you go, that is not real at any level. In almost every case, they act like there's this like showboat of business happening, but it doesn't happen if these things that we just I'm sharing with you or talked about, it doesn't happen if you don't do these things. So just don't underestimate where the market is and what's going on. And people like a Pedro and others who aren't tired, right? And let me tell you something, the reason so many people don't get tired, and this is the one connection. When I hear that, this is what I talked about. Whenever someone, let me put some words up here, tired, stressed, anxious, I'm going to put another word, disconnected, not interested, meaning I don't want to sell real estate. These are all things that show one thing. They have forgotten, and you said this, Ashlyn, on at least a call, why they're doing what they're doing. The one thing I know that when you show up, and here's the thing though, we have to get past. Sometimes the why is survival. Sometimes the why is just a little bit of security. And I watch agents bounce back and forth between a little bit of security and then just a little bit of survival. Survival is food, shelter, clothing, transportation. And then they get just a little bit of security. All going well, isn't it? And what do they back off on? They back off on all these things that we just talked about. But when you are disconnected, stressed, tired, another word we have to put up here, right, is fearful. All of these things make it to where you have forgotten why you're doing what you're doing. So the key thing here is not as much as it is, what do you want, right? That's one question. But the better question is this: why do you want it? You may say, well, I want $100,000 a year, 200 grand, 300, $1 million. I don't care what the number is. The first or the next question in your mouth should be what? I want $1 million a year. Sure, what should be the next question? Yeah, well, no, it's up there. Why? Right? Sure. Why do you want? So if you were with me and I was coaching, seeing one-on-one with you, I'd say, okay, you want to earn $500,000, $1 million. Why? And I usually will say it differently. I'll say, Ashlyn, what's important about $1 million? What's important about $500,000? What's important about 100 grand? What's important? What's important? Now I spend a lot of time like with April Oaks. You know what I things I always rattle over her head? When are we going to Jackson Hole and buying your mountain property? That's really important to her. And the thing is if we sit here in between this play of survival and security, we don't get to mountain homes in Park City and Jackson Hole. We get to crap, can I pay my bills? Oh crap, can I pay for my kids' soccer? That's where we start playing the game, because we're in a place of survival and security. But when you know why, you get so far beyond just survival and security. You start living a life that's your dreams. You prospect later, longer, work harder, because you know why you want what you want. So you don't even think. The only people say, oh, don't burn the candles at both ends. What does that mean? Oh no, you can't sustain that. You can't if you forget why you're doing what you're doing. So our job, not only as individuals, but as leaders or team leaders, if you have people on your team, is to sit there and go, I will never allow you to forget why you're doing what you're doing. It doesn't matter to me how much money April earns. It matters to me is what the money does for April. And if you know that and you never allow yourself to forget it, then you will be not the person who's fearful, tired, stressed, disconnected, disinterested. I'm just so tired, I don't know if I want to sell, because you know why you're doing what you want to do. And when someone with such certainty, like a Pedro says, I'm not tired, I can guarantee you, if I went into this meeting or if I was saying, hey, what's important about you doing so many loans? What's important with what you do? He's going to tell me his reasons. And reasons, I want to write this one down, reasons will never fail you. They'll never fail you, but your willpower will. I need 100 grand, but the reasons why you need 100 grand will never fail you. You won't worry about how much sleep you got. You won't worry about if it's early. You won't worry about if it's late. You won't worry about if you ate. You won't worry if you went to lunch. You will do whatever it takes because you're not tired, disinterested, anxious, stressed, fearful, because it's, I know why I want this. And when we figure out and get connected to why, that's why we meditate on it. That's why we write about it. It's why we journal on it. It's why we talk about it. It's why great coaches, leaders, and people around you say, don't forget why you're doing what you're doing. And when if you forget, then you'll be just going through the motions. And you'll be like, okay, today I got to make 30 contacts. All right. Hi. And you'll be totally okay not setting an appointment because your focus was, well, I said I was going to make some contacts. Versus the focus becomes, why do I want this? Because I want to live my dreams. Because I want to see and stand at the Eiffel Tower. I want to go to the pyramids of Giza, or I want to pay off my house, or I want to help my parents, or whatever it is. But we'll find something within you that never lets you forget why you're supposed to be doing what you're doing, so that your prospecting is everything that it needs to be. And if you will do that, you will not miss a beat. You will have everything you desire. No matter how new you are in this business or how old you are in this business, you can make it happen. Make sense? Okay. Yes, makes sense, Dylan? Yeah. All right. Any thoughts, comments to that? So the moral of the story is what? Prospect. That's the moral. I mean, that's the moral of the story. But prospect with what? There's another P word I might put behind that. Prospect with purpose. Because when you do, you won't worry about all the hangups. You won't worry about how many people didn't answer. You won't get concerned about who didn't set an appointment or who didn't take a loan out. Because when you do this with purpose, then all of a sudden it's a whole different experience for you. And once I began to figure that out in my career, it wasn't that I had to prospect today. I mean, you guys have heard this one. I get to prospect today. I get to do loans today. I get to knock doors today. Because I get to, because I know what I want, why I want it. And all of a sudden it just comes together. And all of a sudden you show up at a home or with a particular client and you have this energy of purpose, direction, authority, conviction, confidence, because that's what shows up when people know where they're going and they know why they're doing it. And if you know where you're going and you know why you're going there, that is a powerful human being to be around, because those are the people that are attracted to the most important clients of at least the day, the year, or whatever you want to call it. That's who will follow you because of what you've attracted, because of who you are or who you have become, because of what you know within yourself. If 75+% of all communication is essentially non-verbal, ask yourself, then what you think, what you believe, what you feel matters when you show up and you do this business. Okay. What time is it? Yeah, we're about time. Okay. Any thoughts, comments? Nick, please, anything.
Yeah. So the thought that came to my mind, a couple of you talked about burnout or, agents that have been in the business a long time being tired. I think it's anticipated exhaustion, meaning like when I think back to joining the company in late 2009, like those years you were tired. I mean, I remember hitting bed and I was tired.
Yeah.
Because you know how hard you have to work to succeed.
Yeah.
But I also remember the refinement that happened in my life during those years. And what you'll find is if you participate and you come and you learn these skills and you role play, those skills will bleed into the rest of your life. Like when I talk to people, I still use the scripts that we practice, like how long have you been in your home? Why did you decide to move to this neighborhood? Yeah. Like that's a normal conversation that I have with a lot of people. And so I promise it's going to be hard, and I promise it's going to be probably the most rewarding years of your life as well.
Oh yeah. These are going to refine people to levels that have not been seen in a long time.
Those are my thoughts.
It's good thoughts, because there's a refinement. There is going to be a purging, as we all know. And that purging will come down to who's willing to engage to becoming more. Because if you don't become more than what you already have become, you won't make it in this business. So don't give up. Don't stop. Keep going. Great.
I'm glad you made reference to mindset, because this world will tell us that we're all tired and
Correct.
like pandemic still and all this stuff.
Yeah, don't work so hard. Don't exhaust yourself.
Get out of it.
Self-care. You got self-care. And I'm not suggesting you don't need those things, but when did hard work? Man, the most dangerous space in a calendar is the white space where there is nothing scheduled. And by the way, the conversation I had with that young lady yesterday on the phone at 9 o'clock last night, it was a conversation I got a text back saying, I have been so idle and there's been so much basically white space in my calendar. My mind has gone so sideways. There is something so powerful about working hard. Don't try to escape hard work. Work is a beautiful thing. Work is what refines you, makes you. Sometimes we are in this journey of trying to do everything we can to not have to work hard. And that may be from a principle of retirement. That's okay, but not in the years of your growth and your years of accumulation and your years of doing this business, man. Work as hard as you can. But if you don't get connected to what you want and why you want it, well, then you will become tired, because it'll just become a job. But when your job turns into just being a job, not even just a career, but it becomes a mission for your life, boy, a whole different level of activity begins to happen, guys. Okay. All right. Let's do some affirmations. We're going to do objection handling tomorrow. Okay. At 7 a.m.